Most people believe retirement works like this. You work for 40 years, save as much as you can, and then spend the rest of your life trying not to run out of money. But here's something curious that few people notice. Some retirees actually become wealthier after 60, not because they worked more, not because they took bigger risks, but because they learned a few quiet retirement planning strategies that keep increasing their retirement savings, strengthening Social Security, and accelerating financial freedom even after retirement. Now, here's the interesting part. These strategies are rarely discussed in public because when too many people begin using the same advantage, it tends to disappear. And throughout this video, you're going to discover 12 of these quiet strategies that some retirees use to continue building wealth. But there's one of them, one that appears in strategy number 7, that makes many people realize they spent decades paying for something that looked completely normal, but was quietly draining hundreds of thousands of dollars from their wealth. And when you discover what it is, you'll understand why some retirees say fixing it felt like receiving an invisible raise for the rest of their lives. 1. The healthcare arbitrage strategy. One of the expenses that scares many people who are learning how to retire with peace of mind isn't investments, it's healthcare costs. Interestingly, many retirees only realize this when they begin studying the real impact of the healthcare system within their retirement planning. But some more attentive investors have discovered something fascinating. Healthcare costs in retirement don't depend only on health, they also depend on how income is structured. In the United States, many healthcare costs, including Affordable Care Act subsidies and even certain Medicare premiums, are tied to reported income, and this is where a quiet strategy appears. Some retirees combine withdrawals from accounts like a Roth IRA, moderate dividend income, and carefully controlled withdrawals from their retirement savings in order to keep their taxable income within certain thresholds. Imagine someone who needs $70,000 per year to live. Instead of withdrawing the entire amount from a traditional IRA, they might take part of it from a Roth IRA or sell investments with minimal capital gains. This approach can reduce taxes, lower healthcare costs, and better protect Social Security benefits. And interestingly, once retirees begin to understand how income can be structured in this way, many of them start asking another quiet question within retirement planning, one that can reshape how they think about wealth for the rest of their lives. 2. The longevity hedge strategy. There's a curious risk inside retirement planning that many people completely ignore. For decades, the focus is on avoiding retirement mistakes, investing wisely, and building retirement savings. But once retirement finally arrives, a different concern appears. What if the money runs out before life does? Some retirees address this by creating what experts call a longevity hedge, a form of protection against living much longer than expected. The idea is simple. Set aside a small portion of wealth to guarantee income much later in life. This can be done using Treasury inflation-protected securities. Tips: deferred annuities that begin paying at age 80 or 85, or even a separate long-term investment account reserved specifically for later years. Imagine someone who allocates $120,000 toward income that will begin at age 85. This type of structure creates a powerful psychological safety net within the process of investing for retirement. When retirees know that guaranteed income will exist far into the future, it becomes much easier to enjoy life, maintain financial discipline, and continue progressing toward financial freedom. And interestingly, once that fear disappears, many retirees begin to notice something even more fascinating about how wealth actually works after 60. They realize that retirement isn't just about protecting money. It's about designing a system where money keeps working long after the career ends. 3. The freedom paycheck strategy. There's a curious moment that appears in the financial life of many people after the age of 60. Suddenly, some of the biggest expenses that followed them for decades simply disappear. The mortgage is paid off, the children are financially independent, and that finance car is finally just a car sitting in the garage. And this is exactly where many people make one of the most silent retirement mistakes in the entire retirement planning process. Many retirees interpret this relief as permission to spend more. They upgrade their car, increase their lifestyle, or start traveling without much planning. But the more strategic retirees see something different. They've just gained a new invisible paycheck. Instead of spending that freed up money, they redirect it directly into their retirement savings and continue investing for retirement. Imagine someone who just finished paying off a $1,200 per month mortgage. Instead of absorbing that amount into new spending, they automate that money into an ETF like Vanguard S&P 500 or Vanguard Total Stock Market VTI. It sounds simple, and it is. But this small discipline can accelerate financial freedom and even help people who want to retire early. Interestingly, many who start with this strategy eventually discover something even more powerful, a second financial engine that very few retirees actually use. 4. The second engine income. There's a principle that many retirees only discover after leaving the traditional workforce. Retirement doesn't necessarily mean completely stopping the ability to produce income. In fact, some of the most financially stable retirees develop what they call a second financial engine, a small parallel income stream that keeps the system running with far more stability. This second engine can take many simple forms. Some retirees do occasional consulting, others accept freelance projects, and some even turn a hobby into income photography, writing, tutoring, or consulting in their former professional field. The key difference is that this income isn't used to pay everyday bills. Instead, it goes directly into retirement savings and continues investing for retirement, acting as a quiet reinforcement of the portfolio. Think about someone who earns just $800 per month by consulting a couple of times per week. If that money is consistently invested in broad funds such as the Schwab US, Dividend Equity ETF, SCHD, or Vanguard Dividend Appreciation, VIG. Over several years, it can build an additional layer of financial security. It's a strategy that reduces reliance on Social Security and accelerates the path toward financial freedom. And interestingly, once this mindset begins to take hold, many retirees start looking at something they already own, something that can unlock even more capital. 5. The downsizing wealth release. At a certain point in life, many retirees begin to notice something curious about the house they've lived in for decades. That large home, once filled with rooms for children and visiting family, suddenly feels bigger than necessary. And this is exactly where some of the most strategic retirees spot a powerful opportunity within their retirement planning. The strategy is commonly known as downsizing. Instead of maintaining a large home that is expensive to upkeep and often underused, they sell the property and move into something smaller, more efficient, and easier to manage. The difference in value, which can often reach $100,000, $200,000, or even $400,000, is redirected into retirement savings and investing for retirement. Imagine someone who sells a home for $650,000 and purchases a comfortable new home for $400,000. The $250,000 that are freed up can be invested in broad funds like Vanguard Total Market VTI or the Fidelity Zero Total Market Index Fund, FZROX. That capital then begins working quietly in the background, generating potential income and reducing common retirement mistakes that come from having too much wealth tied up in a single asset. Interestingly, once that money starts producing income, many retirees begin to notice a fascinating phenomenon, one that can transform small distributions into something much larger over time. 6. The dividend snowball. There comes a point in retirement planning when some investors begin to change the way they look at their portfolios. Instead of focusing only on growing their wealth, they start prioritizing assets that generate consistent income. This is where a strategy widely used by experienced retirees comes in, what many call the dividend snowball. The idea is simple but incredibly powerful. Some retirees begin investing in companies and funds known for paying reliable dividends. Common examples include companies such as Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, and Procter & Gamble, or dividend-focused ETFs like SCHD or VYM. These types of investments create a steady stream of income that can complement Social Security and reduce anxiety about the future. But the real secret isn't just receiving the dividends, it's reinvesting them. When those payments are automatically reinvested, they purchase more shares, which in turn generate more dividends later. Over time, this effect becomes a true income snowball inside a retiree's retirement savings. And interestingly, many retirees discover that when this income begins to grow, another strategic opportunity appears, one related to taxes that surprisingly few people take advantage of. 7. The tax window strategy. There is a period in retirement planning that many experts consider a true golden window. It usually appears right after retirement, when a person is no longer receiving a salary but has not yet started taking required retirement distributions. Interestingly, this window can last several years, and those who understand it often avoid some of the most expensive retirement mistakes related to taxes. At this stage of life, taxable income is often significantly lower, and some strategic retirees use this period to perform gradual Roth conversions. In practice, They move part of their money from traditional accounts, such as a traditional IRA or even an old 401k, into a Roth IRA, paying taxes now in exchange for potentially lower taxes in the future. Imagine someone converting $30,000 or $40,000 per year during this period. That simple strategy can significantly reduce future tax burdens and may even help prevent Social Security benefits from being taxed more heavily later on. Many retirees use platforms like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Charles Schwab to plan these conversions carefully and strategically. And once this tax strategy begins to fall into place, many retirees start to realize that there is still another extremely strategic decision related to lifetime income, one that can make the entire retirement plan far more stable. 8. The Social Security multiplier. There is a decision within retirement planning that, by itself, can completely change a retiree's level of financial security. Interestingly, this decision has nothing to do with picking stocks, choosing funds, or avoiding 401k mistakes. It involves something much simpler: when to start claiming Social Security. Many people claim their benefits as soon as they become eligible, usually around 62 years old. But more strategic retirees understand that every year they delay can significantly increase the monthly benefit. In some cases, waiting until 70 years old can raise the payment by roughly 70% or more compared with claiming early. Think about someone who could receive $1,900 per month at 62, but decides to wait and ends up receiving nearly $3,300 per month at 70. That increase works almost like an enhanced lifetime pension, helping protect retirement savings and strengthening the path toward financial freedom. And interestingly, once this lifetime income becomes stronger, many retirees begin adjusting another quiet detail in their finances, one that may have been draining money from their portfolio every single year. 9. The fee escape plan. There is a detail within retirement planning that goes unnoticed by most people for decades. It doesn't appear as a large expense, it rarely draws attention on account statements, yet it slowly erodes wealth over time. We're talking about investment fees, one of the most silent retirement mistakes that exists. Many investors end up stuck in funds charging 1% or even 2% per year without fully realizing the long-term impact. At first glance, it may seem small, but over 20 or 30 years, those costs can quietly consume hundreds of thousands of dollars from a person's retirement savings. That's why more attentive retirees gradually begin shifting toward lower-cost investments. Simple tools such as index funds and ETFs, for example, Vanguard, Total Market, VTI, Fidelity Zero Funds, or Schwab Broad Market, SCHB, typically come with extremely low expense ratios. This seemingly small adjustment can significantly accelerate long-term portfolio growth and strengthen a strategy of investing for retirement. And interestingly, once those costs begin to fall, some retirees realize they are only missing one final layer of protection, something that can help them move through market cycles with far greater peace of mind. 10. The cash buffer rule. There is a quiet rule that many experienced retirees follow, but it rarely appears in conversations about retirement planning. They understand that the market goes up, the market goes down, and sometimes it drops at exactly the moment you need the money. That's why some of the most prepared retirees create what they call a cash buffer. In practice, this strategy means keeping 1 to 3 years of living expenses in very safe assets, such as high-yield savings accounts, treasury bills, or conservative short-term funds. This financial cushion allows a retiree to pay their bills without being forced to sell investments during bad market periods, avoiding one of the most damaging retirement mistakes. Imagine a retired couple that needs $60,000 per year to live. If they keep roughly $120,000 to $180,000 in cash or cash equivalent assets, they can move through market downturns with far more confidence. During that time, their long-term investments can continue working within their investing for retirement strategy, protecting their retirement savings and reducing immediate reliance on Social Security. Interestingly, once this layer of security is in place, some retirees begin exploring an almost invisible way to create additional income. 11. The quiet rental stream. There is an income source that many retirees discover almost by accident. It doesn't require a complex business structure or deep knowledge of financial markets. In fact, it often begins with something the person already owns. Some people call it the quiet rental stream, a subtle income flow that complements a well-structured retirement planning strategy. Some retirees rent out a small property they purchased years earlier. Others rent a spare room in their home, a small studio in the backyard, or occasionally use platforms like Airbnb or Vrbo to generate extra income. This approach creates a steady cash flow that can complement Social Security and reduce pressure on their retirement savings. Imagine someone generating $700 to $900 per month by renting out an underused space. That income can be redirected directly into investing for retirement, strengthening the portfolio with ETFs such as VTI or SCHD, for example. Over time, this passive income becomes a quiet reinforcement on the path toward financial freedom. And the most interesting part is that many retirees, at this point, begin to discover something that almost nobody imagines about wealth after the age of 60. 12. The post-retirement compounding effect. There is a very common belief that follows many people throughout their lives, the idea that wealth growth ends the moment retirement begins, as if from that day forward a portfolio can only slowly decline. But some retirees eventually discover something surprising within their own retirement planning. When retirement savings remain invested, intelligently avoiding 401k mistakes, reinvesting dividends, and keeping investment costs low, the power of compound interest doesn't disappear. In fact, it continues working quietly in the background. Even small contributions coming from extra income or reinvestments can allow wealth to keep growing for many years. Imagine someone who already has a portfolio of $900,000 and continues reinvesting dividends along with small streams of additional income from consulting or rental activity. With a typical long-term market return, that portfolio can still grow significantly over the following decades. And that's why many retirees eventually realize something fascinating about how to retire with peace of mind. Retirement is not necessarily the end of wealth growth. In many cases, it's simply the beginning of a smarter phase of financial freedom.